Lucy, you want a bagel?
Everything.
Like on the bagel?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Everything?
Everything.
Like everything.
Everything.
Our Everything Bagel!
Where everything's on the table and we don't pull the punches. So I'm Suzanne Yvette Obando, and the lovely person right next to me.
My name is Dana Perez, or Dana.
We are going to talk about activism. I mean, as self-care, as activism, just switching things around. My bad. A little tongue twister there. The reason I'm talking about this, and me and my sister decided to talk about this, is because with a lot of the racism and social justice issues and inequities going on, self-care as activism is super important, especially when you're an underprivileged member of society. Being able to take care of yourself in a space that doesn't want you to exist is utmost importance, but also it's totally a way to one-up the system. What better way to tell it to F off than thriving where you shouldn't be thriving, or at least where it tells you not to thrive?
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's way. It's like, I'm going to thrive so good.
One of the accounts that I'm following that really highlights this posted something that says, ease is your birthright.
It is. I mean, it's so important to like find a space of ease. I've been reading the 5 invitations, and one of the spaces was like, one of the 5 invitations is finding a space to rest or to just like not be in motion all the time. It's great to be in motion, and it's great not to wait and do the things you love, but it's also a good moment to just take it all in too.
Oh, I love that that's one of the invitations.
Yeah.
For me personally, I come from a, one could say like workaholic family space.
I so relate. I relate so hard. You're like talking about someone who used to be like, I'm going to go to school, then I'm going to work, then I'm going to do ocean swimming for 5 hours. And you know what? Let's rock that. That seems like a great idea. And then I look back, I was like, what was I thinking? That sounds insane.
Yes. So rest is something that I've definitely learned how to do more and more over the years. And it's something that's been really present even this month because I've been really feeling the summer energies.
I definitely too. And I know that like it's been a little different, but I think you've been like beside me. I've also been in like a spiritual ceremony that kind of like forced my hand into like being in that space, because like part of the work was also like letting myself be taken care of. And I was like, wait, this is new.
Right. Which is something else that I learned how to do also. It's like learned how to rest and then learned how to receive.
Receiving is hard, especially when you want to like just like give. You want to be like the next Oprah. It's like this for you. And I'm like, no, it's like you also need to receive it.
I think giving and receiving is one of our future topics.
Yeah.
But as like self-care, as activism, like what does that really mean?
I mean, I think it's unique to to each person. I know for me, it's about like, I don't want to say resilience because I don't want to fetishize being resilient. You shouldn't be like, you shouldn't have people's like, good job, like someone like kicked your butt, so, and you did a great job holding those punches. And like, no, like you, like it's great that a person was resilient, but they shouldn't have to be resilient in the first place. Like conditions shouldn't have been that they needed to be resilient. Sorry, I got intense, so you heard my hand just being there.
The passion was coming through.
Because like it's,
and you shouldn't,
you shouldn't. I think self-care is kind of like taking, well, for me, I don't know what for other people, I would think it's like taking a pause from that and actually like doing things that you love, and it's not about, oh yeah, I'm taking care of myself so I can be more resilient, this and that. You're taking care of yourself because you deserve love. And if society doesn't give it to you, well, screw them. I'm going to give it to myself, and I'm going to be here anyway. Right. And I know that kind of has like a little bit of an attitude, but I mean, if you're in a space that says you shouldn't exist, at this point, it's going to be an attitude. I'm like, well, I'm gonna.
Right. And you're like the person you spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
So definitely loving yourself.
And I know that's like, I also want to express that it's hard because like obviously it's easier said than done, especially if you're a minority. Mm-hmm. We're both Latina, so we do experience the experience of being Latina, yes, or Latinx in my case, because I'm they, them. And so, you know, we have our privilege because of our lighter skin and whatnot, but we also have to deal with the racism of sometimes people don't take us seriously at all. Some people don't even think we have an education sometimes. And it's frustrating sometimes to just be proven when someone who is essentially like a white woman could walk in, do the same exact thing you do, and somehow they get more credit than you. And it's always like a frustrating experience. And so it's just like taking a step back and finding just a moment to yourself where you don't let all of that leak in, and you don't let it's just about you. It's like, if that means buying chocolate for yourself and shoving it in your face, and then do that.
Right. And I have a good definition here, again, by this new account I follow, and they're called the NAP Ministry. Let me read their description because I love them, and it's been really present for me. So it says, the NAP Ministry, that's their, what is it called, tagline on Instagram, and we examine the liberating powers of naps. We believe rest is a form of resistance and reparations. They installed nap experiences, and they were founded in 2016. We should get in touch with them too.
We should. I really want, like, can you define nap experiences further?
They have pictures.
Like, I really need to know. It's just like nap experiences. Like, what is this?
Yes, but let me define rest. Just to really emphasize
the rest
whole rest thing. So, to rest is to relax, to take a rest, to ease off, to let up, to slow down, pause, take a break, unbend, repose, idle, loaf, do nothing, take time off, slack off, unwind, recharge one's batteries, be at leisure, take it easy, sit back, sit down, stand down, lounge, luxuriate, put one's feet...
Luxuriate. I love this word.
Put one's feet up, lie down, go to bed, take a nap, cat nap, doze, take a siesta.
The siesta.
Oh, and I can actually add something. In Guatemala, a nap is called cuaje.
Cuaje.
Which I love.
Love that. Cuaje.
So those are all different ways that one can rest.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's like literally creating the space. And I know it's really, because like, I know we're advocating self-care as activism. And I also want to be mindful that there are people in positions where, like, because of social economic situations, like the idea of taking a nap or taking just 30 minutes themselves, it is stressful because, like, oh, who's going to pay the rent? Who's going to do that? Who's going to take care of the kids? And I think it's, as a society, we need to do better in allowing to give space to those communities who can't, because, like, it's a right to be able to take care of yourself. I mean, that's like the whole point of society, is to be able to take care of your community. Like, and if we're not doing that, we're kind of failing as a society, aren't we?
We should take a water break to that.
Water break that I just went into intense.
No. It's a good observation.
I'm just saying. Oh no. I should have brought my water. I did a bad thing.
What?
I have my cup. It's just really hard to drink water when you have like a specific cup and a specific plate you can only use.
That is complicated.
Yeah.
I know I keep sharing more about them, but
No, I follow them on my Instagram.
I love it. So here is something the founder, Tricia Hershey. Is that Hershey?
Yeah.
Hershey wrote, and which is kind of what you were saying. So it's like, stop saying rest is a luxury or a privilege. It's not. It is not. It is a human right. The more we think of rest as a luxury, the more we buy into these systematic lies. I will never donate my body to capitalism. I will never donate my body to white supremacy. Let us remember rest as reparations, rest as a form of resistance. This work is about uplifting. Rest can help us get there. It gives us a space to embody and live in divinity.
Yeah. And I also, like, one of the things I remember talking to someone, because, like, I know we were part of, like, a spiritual community. I know since then we kind of, like, floated away.
Yes.
And I remember one saying that, like, well, we need to provide spiritual stuff to the colored community and this and that and POC. And I'm like, well, before we can get there, we need to provide spaces where they can heal and get the self-care, and by self-care, I mean, like, therapy, emotional support, someone to talk to you, because, like, that's part of self-care. Part of self-care is, like, for me, is going to therapy. I go to therapy because I need it, because I have PTSD, and that's my self-care, because it helps me heal from the traumas I have. And being able to create the resources for the people who need them is part of, like, providing self-care to the community. And I think that, like, that's also an important thing to emphasize. It's like, do self-care for you, but as a society, because, like, we definitely shouldn't be putting it on the underprivileged community to provide opportunities of self-care to underprivileged community. As a society, especially the people who are privileged, should be creating opportunities and recourses for people who need the self-care. And that is the mental health. That is having spaces to grieve. That is spaces to talk about death. That is spaces to just chill and breathe for a second and drink your freaking tea, and whatever that looks like. Or, like, maybe going hiking and having an opportunity to be able to do that.
Right. And self-care is defined as those activities that are done to improve your daily life.
Yeah. And there's just so much. Like, one of the things that I noticed, I don't know if it exists still, is, like, we had a City at Peace here in Santa Barbara where they created opportunities for underprivileged and especially kids, like, I don't want to say troubled children, because I don't think that's fair, but, like, children who had, like, not the greatest background, and we don't know the circumstances that led them to deciding the life choices that they took. So that's why I don't want to label them as troubled children, because if you're living in a social economic intense situation that's not great for you, desperate situation garners desperate actions. So can you really blame them when society is not providing them any other recourses? But City at Peace allowed these kids come in and tell their stories and turn them into plays and then perform them.
Wow.
And I think that's just, like, also a powerful experience. And, like, I would consider that self-care, because, like, to actually create a space where you have a voice and express your story and be heard, that's such a powerful thing, to be seen and to be heard.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, the vagina monologues, I know there's the actual play, and then there's the V-Day movement now that's going on. I know that, like, the wording that they use is probably not the most gender exclusive. They're trying. They're definitely trying. But
That's awesome.
they're trying. They're doing their bestest.
I had no idea.
But, like, I went to a local one at UCSB, and they actually, this one was very gender inclusive. There were like people of all genders, whether they were trans, cis, or like me, who was non-binary. And they told their stories of being a person who owns a vagina. And it just seeing them on the stage, it seems so powerful for them to own their experience of having a vagina, but also their identity, because that might have been the only opportunity where they got to vocalize it out loud and be seen.
That's awesome.
I can go like, there's so many things in theater and self-care and activism. I think that was one of the most recent ones here in Santa Barbara that I've seen. Another one that I've learned about is theater of war. That one's, I actually saw a performance. I thought I would never have an opportunity to see one, but I was lucky enough to go on a Zoom and actually talk to the person who created Theater of War, which was extraordinary to me. He even responded to my email. And he did a play of Antigone, which was, if you guys know about Antigone.
No.
Okay, so Antigone, brief summary, is a Greek play that is about a young woman who I guess would be either actually probably younger than us, like in her teens or her early 20s. And it's one of the stories within the stories of Oedipus. And this is after her brother dies, two her brothers go to war. One of them died fighting for Troy, and the other one died fighting against Troy. And the one who fought for Troy got the honors of like having burial rights, and the other one was left to die in the desert and be fed by animals. In the play, it was disrespectful to do that to your dead. In the summary of the play, it was this character fighting for her right, for her brother's rights, but also her right to lay her dead to rest. But with the theater of war, they took Antigone and they actually started broaching the conversations of all the deaths that happen within the Black community, and how some people, because of an injustice death, they also deal their own form of fighting for the right of their dead and not actually getting any resolution. And so this story became an outlet to express their struggle for the audience and even the people who are acting. And they had panelists who have like experience relating to that story that started conversations with the actual theater audience, that after they play, they talked to the audience and expressed the turmoils that they went through. But what I loved about the setup where you have the play, you have the panel, and then you have the audience, it creates an opportunity of like the audience being able to vocalize what they weren't able to vocalize, but the play had allowed to create a space for, and the panel encouraged that conversation to continue. So it literally created a space to find closure or resolution, or at least expression of something they couldn't speak about.
Wow.
Which I think is also another form of like self-care through use of art and theater to create a space of expression where sometimes words isn't enough, or there isn't a space like that in society. And like when I read his book, he talked about how like in the past, because a lot of these Greek societies were actually war societies, that a lot of the citizens in the Greek cities were actually soldiers or veterans from wars, so they used theater as an outlet to express or just find relatable and connect to someone about their experience of war, because sometimes they didn't even have the space to express it, so the theater was the space to express it.
Wild.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. It's just such a trip
It is. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with art. I've always been interested, like in art, with theater especially, is like the use of theater and just art in general as a way to find like reparations or deal with grief and do self-care for the community or for the self. Because I think it's like art could be used in such an, not only in an activist way where you can see Banksy and there's a lot of his activism in art, but also, and I'm pretty sure it's like very therapeutic for him to like do like this art that like pretty much like calls out
The one that got destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, the self-destruct one was beautiful.
Shredded.
That was just like chef's kiss. Like, like if that was like the best pasta in the world, that would be my favorite pasta. Like that is the best pasta in the world for me.
That's hilarious.
That was just so beautiful. Like someone bought it and it's self-destruct. I'm like, yes, the best way to like flip the bird.
I really love you bringing up this theater expression space, right? Because there's different levels of self-care, there's different levels of rest, and if you're in survival mode, right, you're not going, a bubble bath might not do the thing for you.
Yeah.
Right, so this is like sort of like honoring all of the different levels that one can be in self-care or in rest.
Yeah. And I think like there's something about healing and self-care also about being seen and heard, and sometimes being seen and heard for you is like your bubble bath and you seeing yourself. It's like I see you and I see that you need a bath and I see that you need chocolate. And then for some people it's like I need someone to hear my story and I need to be seen in some way. And I think that's so important, especially when you're like underprivileged, when you're not seen by society, and then you found a space that creates like a community that sees you. It's so important. Like I think you see that with Pride. What's beautiful with Pride is part of the self-care aspect of Pride is I'm also queer, so all we queers, we go down and go with our people and we're seen for who we are, or like, and with no judgment. They're like, this is our story, we're queer and we love the way we love.
Right.
And just have the freedom to do that.
Right. Which kind of leads into something else I wanted to point out, that part of self-care is community.
Yes.
And that's technically what Pride is also doing. It's like in this community, I am seen, I can be myself.
It can be heard. And also just like learn about yourself, because like being like new to the queer community, finding a space that you learn to navigate your sexuality is so important. And then just like where you see like spaces for people of color, spaces for Latinx and all that, it's like having people within your community that has a shared experience is sometimes so important, because they understand the trauma or the lived experiences where some people might not be able to relate
At all. Right.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. Yeah. Growing up in the in-between.
Yeah.
Coming from Venezuela and growing up in the U.S. I was like comparing myself to people that were that couldn't really see what I was going through, and it wasn't their fault or my fault for thinking they could, but it's like they just couldn't relate, and I thought I was the outcaster, but no, I was just relating different experiences to people that haven't experienced those.
Yeah, and that's why like creating the community, the space, and the opportunity to have those conversations, especially for that community, is super important, because it is part of self-care to be seen, to be heard, but also be able to be around people who understand you, because being understood is so important. I think like it's such an important part of like defining your identity and your existence in the world, finding people to relate to and who like understand you.
Yeah, that super resonates with me. I was an outcast. I've always been a little alternative outcast space. But moving to California, I was like, oh, here are my people. I really felt like I had found all the mix matching people.
Mismatch. I know, like, when I first moved to Santa Barbara, that was not my experience at all. And I'm not even embarrassed out. Like, I think it took a while for me to find, like, community. And I think it was part of, like, dealing with, like, my own traumas, life traumas, and then racism, and then just social economic stuff that happens in life. And like that my family had to go through, because they're not exactly like, they weren't middle class, they were definitely under that. And so like learning to navigate that identity, but also like in my case there was like loss of culture, and then trying to find my culture and my identity. For a while I didn't even know I was a person of color until I went to my first Orisha house. I will define that in a few minutes. But there was like this beautiful black woman, and she goes like, well, you're Colombian, so you're a person of color. And I'm like, I'm a person of color. And I actually cried, because like my experience my entire life was like, well, obviously I don't look white, so I was never part of the white community. And then part of the Latino community, because I don't know if it was the New York accent or whatever. I don't have the accent anymore, so don't try looking for it. They didn't really accept me, or the fact that I was like first generation, so I definitely had a very American accent. And then like when I spoke Spanish, I spoke it well, but I had my own accent in there, that I was like, oh, but you're not really Colombian. You were like, I was like a fake Colombian. I was just like, someone put like a costume on me and like wrote Colombian on it, so you're not real. Like, and I'm like, okay, so like what the heck am I then?
You're fake white and fake Colombian.
Exactly. And essentially you're nothing. And I'm like, this, like, so you're like navigating essentially the society saying, well, you don't belong here, you're kind of nothing. And then to have someone say you are a person of color and like tell me that is your identity and you have every right to it, was such a huge experience for me. And like that helped me, like, and that was the first time, like, because like Santeria has a lot of Latinx and it's just multicultural there, I was able to see a lot of people like myself that's like first generation, or who just came from like you, who came from Venezuela at a young age and everything.
Generation.
Yeah, that we all accept each other, and we knew we're a person of color. We all lost in some way our culture, and we're all here to some degree to reclaim it. Do this practice. I know for me it was definitely a reclaiming of my practice, getting into like Santeria or Orisha practice, because that was something my grandfather used to do. So it's, yeah, knowing your identity and having a space to have it and be in it is such a huge thing for self-care. And just, like, that's why for me, I have my culture, like this whole thing on reclaiming my culture was so important, because I don't want my kids to go through that.
Right. And I think this will be a recurring topic for us. And I think we'll share different ways to practice self-care and do self-care and find communities. And but I wanted to say, what is an Orisha house? So an Orisha house, well, first I have to define what an Orisha is. So an Orisha, from my understanding, like from what I understood, is like a divine force of nature that connects to whatever you want to call God, the Great Spirit. In like my practice, it's called Olodumare. And they're children of like the Great Divine. So in a way, they're kind of demigods. And so they represent very important aspects of nature. Like you have Chango, which is like masculinity and thunder and dance and passion and fire, where Oya is like owns the gates of the cemetery, is owner of the marketplace, death, the ancestors. And these are different Orishas. Yeah. And each one, like they almost like if you're in like Christian Catholic, they almost function like guardian angels in a way.
or guides or very, very powerful spirit guides. They're not just like a spirit, they're like very divinely powerful spirits.
Like, what is her? There's this person called Kanye, like that.
Huh?
Kanye. I'm saying it. I don't know what they're
Oshun Yamaya.
No, not in Santeria.
Mm.
In some other kind. No.
Kanye.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was trying to say if it's like comparison.
Oh wait, is it the one of like compassion and love?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like if we were gonna compare, even though they're very like different
religions, yeah,
different cultures and religions, because like I would say like Santeria is a Cuban Yoruba diaspora. There's other Orisha practices where there's Candomblé in Brazil, Ifa in Africa, and many others. They like Oshun is very similar to her, very like
right,
lightly on the similar, but where it comes to love and passion and sweetness of life, that's like Oshun.
I was just asking as far as like similarity, as far as like forces of nature, or something like that.
They're similar in that way.
Like individual energy.
But like an Orisha house is like a house that practices connecting to those energies, and they are an African diaspora, so a lot of their practices stem from like Yoruba. I pronounced that bad before. I mispronounced it. It's Yoruba, and that cultural practice. So that's what an Orisha house. Each Orisha house is unique. Like mine, like the one I'm part of, can be very different from the next one. They have their own houses. They have their own private practices. Some practices I can't get into because they're closed practices, like many other different spiritually cultural practices are closed. In some cases, in an Orisha house, that goes the same. But that's essentially what an Orisha house is.
That made me think. Thank you so much for defining, explaining.
I did my best. Well, I think my godfather would do such a better job.
Sure. Well, you talking about religion made me think of discernment, which kind of leads into another point in self-care. But I wanted to sort of share one of my favorite definitions for spiritual well-being. Mm-hmm. So spiritual wellness is a process of understanding beliefs, values, and ethics that guide your life. Whatever your preferred approach, spending time asking and exploring your spiritual life can be an important life of your overall well-being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is totally part of self-care, whatever that looks like.
Right. So that kind of leads me to something else I wanted to cover on self-care, which is discernment. Well, which is, I guess, religion made me think of discernment, and the discernment to limit the things that bring your energy down.
I think that's so important.
Tell us more.
I know for me, there are some people I had to remove in my life that just wasn't healthy, and yes, there's sometimes family member. In my case, it's absolutely a family member that I've limited in contact because this person was very toxic and very unhealthy for me and actually caused a lot of the traumas in my childhood. So I had to get over the guilt and the shame of I'm a bad person or a bad family member, whatever. Do I still deal with that? Yes. But in the end of the day, a toxic relationship is a toxic relationship. I think one of the best thing I've learned, it was like a statement someone made that I read, was that just because you love me doesn't mean that your love doesn't hurt me. Mm. And I think that's super important. It's like that person could love you as much as they claim to, and they could really, really love you, but it doesn't change the fact that their way of loving you is hurting you, and you can't, like, that's not the kind of love you need to receive.
Right. And I think that's based on their definition of love, and we're gonna have an entire episode about love.
Yeah,
because I love talking about love.
I think it's super important, to like conversation, because like I think for me, like, it didn't click until someone, like, hearing that statement was like, yeah, I'm like, they could love me all they want, but it doesn't change that their love doesn't hurt me, and it doesn't change the fact that they're hurting me and they're making me miserable.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't change that your love makes me miserable and I can't have it.
Right. And to that, like, I feel like I want to make sure, or I want to share how, like, the body that always knows, the body doesn't lie. So this might be a new concept for you to hear, right? You people, audience. Because I don't know, it was a new concept for me once upon a time. And I was like, how do I know which people, bring my energy up or bring it down?
Yeah.
And it's literally something physical you can feel in your body.
Yeah. I believe what she's talking about is called intuition.
Oh. Intuition.
So yes, but I also wanna like add something that my therapist did say, that like for some people who have been through trauma, sometimes your intuition goes a bit extreme. Like, I know when I first started my journey with my trauma and I'm doing it, I was very extreme. I think I'm not as extreme now. I'm still kind of like, maybe not, like, when you see me, I'm not the first one to be like, yay, hey, like, hi, stranger. Like, I'm definitely thinking stranger danger in my head, and not the most constant, like, keeping conversation a social butterfly. But afterwards, I definitely give you a chance. But in the beginning, a chance was not something I was willing to give so quickly. Where now, I'm like I said, I have my guard up, but I'm willing to hear you out.
Right.
So I think that's like an important thing, because like I know the me from when recently my trauma that happened 2 years ago happened would have been way too on edge for my intuition to be that accurate. I think everything would have been danger.
Right. I call it, I guess I call it like some sort of like overcorrection, right? It's like, you're looking out for something and then you're like,
everything's danger.
Yeah.
It's like that wall is danger.
Yeah, but that's also important in overall as in self-care.
Yeah, I think the discernment's also like very important, because like also discerning the information you get in like in your little noggin.
Right, which would also be like limiting in just intaking information. Right, nowadays we have so much access to so much information. I have a friend who's really, really good at limiting their social media intake.
Yeah. Well, I've been getting like, I'm trying to get into this habit of like having my Saturdays at night where I don't have my phone and just my books with me.
Yummy.
Yeah, and so I've been trying to get into that routine. I know that was like a period during my spiritual stuff where I was like off everything, offline completely.
For how long?
7 days.
OMG.
And it was the best. I didn't even know what time was at that point. It was like, was it Monday or was it Tuesday? I'm like, it's good. Someone will tell me something. It was great. I loved how time kind of lost meaning for a second during those days.
You went time traveling.
Yeah.
I guess something you might have experienced during this time is something known as meditation.
Oh, yes.
Which is another really amazing form of self-care. And you can do it in like 5 minutes, like in the laundry room or in the car at the red light. And what is that?
I would caution at the red light.
Depends on what level of self-care. I'm talking about someone that's never done self-care. They can totally do 2 minutes of meditation in the car. Just like feel your feet.
Like do it before you start driving. Just to be safe.
Yes. and we can share some meditation information.
Yes. I know I've been trying to meditate every morning with like my spiritual altar right there. And it's been helpful. Like I do like 8 minutes, 5 minutes. So like it takes time. It takes time because it's a process. I'm like I used to be able to do longer, but I have to build up now.
8 minutes is amazing for anyone that's not meditating at all.
Yes.
What is meditation? Do you have a nice quick?
I think it's like that moment where you're just like helping your mind quiet down. And there's many different types of meditations. There's that. And then there's ones about just like letting go, and it's meant to connect on impermanence. Mm-hmm. So
Well then.
But yeah,
I need to set a timer in here.
Yes, we do need to set a timer. But it is about connecting with impermanence, some meditation. So it really depends on what you want. Like I would say begin with emptying your minds and taking just 5 minutes to quiet everything, because we do live in a society that doesn't really stop talking, so
ever, and that's why meditation is important.
Yes. Well, my darlings, we believe we've been shutting you up quite a bit, so we do have to go. We will be back, and we love you all. Subscribe today. Don't forget to do that to see to see Dana's face. Dana's face. You won't get to see my face in a year, but you get to imagine it. I'll just do sketches, and then you can take pictures of my sketches.
Drink water.
Do some self-care, even if it's 2 minutes of just doing nothing.
You could just lounge.
Doing nothing is so valid, and self-care is so not selfish.
Is being selfful.
Selfful. That is so cute. I love that. I love that for me. I love that for you too.
Let's be selfful.
Okay.
Good night.
So subscribe and good night.
It could be good morning.
Or good morning. Wherever you are, just subscribe and
see you soon.
See you soon.